who grew up in Mangalore city, was visiting his village in Patara district for the first time. He had a lot of land in the village, so he did not want to disclose the donor's whereabouts. But after his father's passing, Dev was going to his village to sell his pushtani farm and land to a hotel company. His car was somehow passing through different villages, and he could hear the same drums and screaming sounds everywhere. He was seeing all this for the first time in his life. Everything in sight. When he reached his village house, he saw that the village was also decorated like the rest of the village. But there was no celebration going on yet. When he asked his housekeeper Karka what the decoration was for, he told him that there was going to be a ghost in the village the next day. The donor's uncle started telling him about the ghost caller, but because the night was very late and the donor was very hungry, he fell asleep before listening to his uncle. The next day, the Odal people came to his house. After showing his land to the people of Odal, he was bidding them farewell and signing the property papers that evening. When he came back to, when the donor looked out the window of his room. So he showed him some strange castles. The donor left the papers in the same house to watch the celebration of the cows. At the place of celebration, he saw a lot of people gathered in one place and make him hear the same drum sound louder and louder. Everyone standing behind the crowd was silently begging. When he saw a man in colorful clothes pounding at him, he was trembling in the middle of the crowd. And he was doing a weird little dance, and everyone folded their hands in front of him, asking him different things. Before that, the donor would have understood something. The man suddenly stopped snorting, and he ran towards Grandpa, shouting at the crowd, and stared at him. The donor was terribly terrified to see the man so closely. The man had a pale complexion all over his head, and he had a lot of jewelry on his body and a wild boar on his head, which made the man even more awkward. The donor of such a sharp man was upset. The man ran away towards the forest after screaming at the tooth. Seeing this, all the villagers rushed towards the donor, and he saw a strange fear on everyone's face. Everyone started warning the donor that something bad is going to happen to him and that he should take every step of the way. The donor laughed at all this, thinking it was the distrust of the villagers, and went back to his home. The donor had just reached his home. His uncle came running after him and came home nervously and started explaining everything to him. They told him that those who came and shouted at him, he was actually Panjori Dev, who protects the land of the villagers and the villagers, and saves the villagers from all the problems. He comes every year at the time of Bhoot Kholar and solves all the problems of the people. And this celebration is held every year in the joy of his arrival. The donor's uncle told him that Panjuri Dev's shouting at the donor meant that Panjuri Dev was against selling the land that the donor was selling. As soon as he sang, he started laughing even louder after hearing all this. His uncle began to understand him. If he does not obey, his life may be in danger. At this, the donors lay in their room. Pulling out the property papers, signing them, he went to sleep. That night, the tooth was sleeping soundly. When he woke up late at night from a dwelling, when he listened to that voice carefully, it was exactly the same as the one he had heard in the ghost collar in the evening. But this time, no one was seen there for far away. But then there will be a strong spark in the air. And all of a sudden, Panjuri Dev started screaming loudly in front of him. Seeing this, the donor started sweating. And without thinking, the donor got into his car and started to leave the village. The donor had just reached the wooded road as he drove. It was then that he saw something that he heard. Suddenly, he had a toothy hearing loss. And a wild boar wearing a gold necklace and a freebie came right in front of his carriage. Fearing in the tooth, he turned his car around and went to a nearby tree. The donor had an accident and he had regained consciousness there too. When the donor regained consciousness, he was in the hospital and his uncle was sitting next to him. Seeing them, the donor started crying loudly. Then he asked his uncle to go and bring the property papers at the same time. As soon as his uncle brought the papers, the donor laid them on the spot. After being discharged from the hospital, the donor apologized to Panjuri Dev and went back to his house, Manja, swooning. He will never sell his land to anyone. I don't know if the bitter relationship with the donor was the illusion of a god or a coincidence. But whatever it was, I will never forget this horrible experience.